Hello, I'm FGXTricker and welcome back to a very special episode of my Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. This is the Let's Play where I've been playing through the various updates that have come out for Minecraft on the Xbox, building stuff, killing stuff, and of course, destroying stuff. And in today's episode, I figured let's do something a little bit special because 400 episodes is quite a big deal, especially since this series has been weekly for most of its run. So we have 400 episodes of, this fun once-a-week opportunity to, go through the survival world and to play some survival Minecraft. It's something I've loved the entire time, and I figured we've got to do something special. So this episode is going to be 400 minutes long, although you might notice the time on YouTube is less than that. We'll be cutting out a lot of those 400 minutes for reasons you might understand later. It's going to be 400 minutes long, and we're going to be trying to make 400 cakes, because making a cake in Minecraft is the classic challenge when you're like, let's do something that's kind of hard, right? Let's do something that has a little bit of challenge to it, because it's lots of moving parts. It's a really simple task that anyone can do. It's just how long would it take you that's the fun thing. But you know what's way harder than making one cake? Making 400 cakes. So today we're going to be trying to making 400 cakes, which is a surprisingly complex task, because to make 400 cakes you need 3,600 ingredients. I think that'd be like 1,200 wheat, I want to say, 1,200 buckets of milk, 800 sugar, and 400 eggs. So we'll tackle this bit by bit in today's video, and then make a big monument to the fact that, yeah, we're on episode 400, just after hitting 400 million views on YouTube. It's really cool as far as milestones go, and yeah, we're going to take a few seconds to congratulate ourselves, because I feel like everyone deserves to do that at least for a little bit. And yeah, in the time we congratulate ourselves, let's also explain how we're going to get our sugar, because, fun fact, a lot of the ingredients for making a cake, we have a lot of just en masse right here. So for instance, we have a lot of sugar right here, which means if we make ourselves a white shulker box, which we can do quite easily, if we have ourselves one of these, then we can store a lot of sugar inside this chest really easily, because I have so much sugarcane, I think I can get 800 sugar, because you need 2 sugar per cake. 400 cakes. Let me do the very crazy complex maths for you right now. I can tell you that means 800 sugar. I think I can get that literally before the night falls today, and night is already falling, so keep that in mind as I say this. But yeah, I want to take at least a few seconds to just kind of say the fact that 400 episodes is cool, but I never want to make special episodes that are really far away from the main thing. I always like it when, because one of the cool things about the Let's Play is that it has been every Monday for however many weeks that it has been now, right? Like that's one of the best things about a series, about a weekly thing. I personally, one of the traits I value in people and I value in things is, dependable. If you can't depend on something, then, what is that something? Some things are worth keeping around even though you can't depend on them, but most things you prefer knowing that, like, oh yeah, well, it's here today, but hopefully it'll also be here tomorrow, because that's the wonderful thing about it. And yeah, that might have made no sense, but it is my real impression, and it is something that maybe you can keep in mind, where, like, ideally, you might think, like, oh yeah, well, it turns out we have no obligations to each other as people, because it doesn't really matter in the end anyway. But I think it does matter in the end. I think one of the few things you can be people is whatever they value in you, and most people value dependability. Most people value reliability, trust, loyalty, etc. And that's something without the loyalty, the trust, the dependability, all these different words that basically mean the same thing. It's like, hey, like, I try to be there, I'm talking about, like, in relationships here, trying to be there for you when you're down, and you trying to be there for me when I'm down. I mean, like, in the context of YouTube, it's a bit different, because, again, whole different media or whatever, but you get the point. That's how it can be with friends. And maybe you get a valuable life lesson while Toycat literally just harvest sugarcane, because you'll notice how it's nighttime now. I mean, pretty conclusively, but I want to say, we won't know until the morning and I craft it, but I want to say we've probably got 800 sugar, if not very close, in that amount of time. This is why you need a big sugarcane farm. People always are like, Toycat, you don't need that much sugarcane. That sugarcane farm is way too ridiculous, and, that is a big part of the point, so you've kind of missed the point if you say that anyway. But also, it's like, it's 1 sugarcane equals 1 sugar, so that means we have this much sugar, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of the point, in my opinion, of, like, doing something like this. Like, it's designed to be so big as to be pointless, as to be stunning. Think about skyscrapers in real life. No one really wants to be on the, 12th floor of a skyscraper. That's just too high, in my opinion. Also, we've got 640, 700, 764. We have ourselves 800 now, which means now we have to go over to the wheat farm. And you might have seen some of my wheat preparations to make this happen in the last week's Q&A Saturday video. But just in case you didn't, then let me show you just over here that this is my insane wheat farm. It's kind of modeled off the insane sugarcane farm. It's not quite as efficient because, I mean, it's not as easy to harvest. You have to replant things. But it does mean for things like this that we can easily just come in here and we can get ourselves 800 wheat and we can get it in this same chest. So while we do the wheat harvesting, which is necessary to make this 400 cakes for 400 episodes, I guess I should talk at least a little bit about why I love these insane farms. Because one of the things that's been consistently true, I would say, over these past 400 episodes, and will be true over the next 400, is that I actually really like farming in Minecraft. It's one of those things. Also, it's hard to see what the new wheat is versus the old one. Like, is this wheat or is this wheat? They're so similar, but I'm assuming the same color wheat is the right one. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about why I love wheat in Minecraft, because even though this Let's Play is special, we're going to be doing a lot of, a particular big task. I also think we should talk a little bit about what I've been up to and some things that I love in Minecraft. And yeah, I really love wheat farming. I love farming in general in Minecraft, which is a weird thing to say, but also games like Stardew Valley are popular. There's a reason that farming is a fun mechanic. There's a reason Farm Simulator exists, and even within Minecraft, I've shown up before on my channel, like farming-based maps that you can play that basically are Farming Simulator, but inside Minecraft. And the reason all these things exist, at least my interpretation of that, I mean, obviously, everyone has their own reasons for doing things, is because there is something really nice about, just the satisfying, repetitive nature of making progress towards a task. I think one of the, I'm really glad we live in a society where not everyone needs to make food. One of the key tenets of like modern day life is that you don't need to make food. Someone else handles that for you. Like it used to be back in, before the days of surplus, everyone had to make their own food. If you didn't make your own food, you would be dead because every human needs food, and we can only make enough food for one person. Then slowly, like, technology increases and we learn a little bit more about how, farming works. And suddenly, now one person makes food for more people, and then take that fast forwards like a few more 100 years, and suddenly now something like 1% of people are farmers, and they make enough food for everyone. And although you can argue about a lot of that food goes to waste, and some people don't have as much food as others, you can definitely say there is a lot of food, and that is a result of the coolness of farming. But I think that's a good thing in general. I love that I don't need to farm. I love that I can play Minecraft or make YouTube videos or go to Taiwan, as I will be just as this video is being uploaded. But the reason that all these things are possible, it's because we don't farm, but also at the same time, I think there's a beauty to farming. There's a beauty to any physical work where, after you've done something, you can see the physical rewards of what you've done. One of the reasons that gardening is such a terrible hobby, in my opinion, as a 23-year-old or whatever, but imagine if you planted a tree 20 years ago and you could see it grow. I've always thought this about time capsules and stuff. If you could go back in time 10 years, make a time capsule for you, I would love to do that. But also, every time I think that I'd like to do that, I never make a time capsule for future me. I'm just like, well, I didn't do it in the past, so I guess I'm never doing it now. And it's such a bad set of logic, but it's something I do to myself all the time anyway. Maybe everyone else has had the same thought. I would love to be able to connect with, 13-year-old me, or, with 17-year-old me, or with 10-year-old me, and see what he thought I would be up to, Because, something about staying true to past you and future you's ambitions, it's a part of being human that we all seem to like. But, yeah, basically, the reason that I mentioned this is just because I want to say that farming in Minecraft is one of the most beautiful parts of the game. If you've ignored it this whole time thinking, well, that's kind of stupid, I don't need wheat anyway, I have enough cows to have a thing, but start a farm in Minecraft. Start a farm in Minecraft, you won't regret it, you'll have a good time, and even if it's only a little bit every now and then, I've rarely seen anyone who goes into farming and doesn't come out a fun person on the other side. Because in the same way that Cookie Clicker or Adventure Capitalist or Adventure Communist or whatever, they're fun games despite the fact that they have no gameplay, because there are things besides gameplay that interest us. In the same way, Minecraft farming, it's not mechanically interesting, but that doesn't mean that it's not interesting as a whole. And, yeah, it's kind of interesting to me that, the real reward in gardening, the real reward in Minecraft farming, the real reward in most of these things, really Minecraft as a whole, is the idea that, you do something now for a reward that comes in the future. I guess delayed gratification would be the fancy way to phrase that. But, this is something that, I guess everyone knows is good, but is also one of the biggest struggles. Arguably, the biggest human struggle we face today. Can you delay gratification, though? Can you really go that long without any gratification, any sense of feeling good or whatever? And I guess the answer of most people is oh no, that's actually quite hard. Never mind, you're right. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. That doesn't mean that we don't try. And that's why I think that having a milestone say 400 episodes is kind of cool in its own little way. It's to well, even though the milestone means nothing, 400, and 400 million views, why is that really so exciting? Why is 400 episodes so exciting? They're just, 400's not even a particularly round number. 500, yeah, you can get me there when you're on 500,000 or 500 million, episodes / views. But you know, half a million, oh sorry, half a thousand, half a, like, sorry, 4/10 of a thousand, 4/10 of a billion. No one ever gets big for those numbers. And the reason we make the numbers big is because we can make our own senses of pride and accomplishment. And, you know, you might say, well, if you can make your own set of pride, then wouldn't you make anything feel good? And that's the cool thing about life, in my opinion, that we choose not to. We all have this sense of wanting to do something. We all kind of internally know or internally have a feeling of what our potential could be. And maybe it's cool that we push ourselves. Maybe it's the human curse. Maybe it's the part of the human condition that we should all be striving to fight. That, like, why do we always want more than we have? Why do we always want to do more than we have? But it's also something that I think drives a lot of cool human behaviors at the same time. And that's why we should celebrate milestones. Like, 400 episodes. You know, you went further. Did this episode series need to be 400 episodes? Arguably not. I mean, I've said before, but it's not the most viewed series on the channel. It's arguably a liability to the channel because YouTube checks, like, click-through rates for the whole channel and kind of, like, you know, it makes the rest of the channel look bad because it's like, oh, this is the dud series. I guess he's not as good as, you know, these communist videos would suggest. Like, it's bad in terms of algorithmic performance for me to upload these, but I do it anyway. Is that make it more commendable? Is doing something for a really long time with no reward more commendable than doing it with a reward? Like, you know, if I collected, you know, shoes for 400, oh, sorry, wait. Every single time I, like, destroyed a pair of shoes, I left them in a thing, and then I had a collection of, like, 80 years worth of destroyed shoes. Is that just as impressive as if I spent 80 years, you know, helping children build wells in Africa? And you're gonna say, no, Toycat, 80 years worth of shoes is not as impressive as 80 years worth of wells. But that's something I've always found interesting, that we have our own. We clearly have a sense of, like, good goals and good judgment, but we set it internally because we know that, like, oh yeah, instead of collecting 80 years worth of shoes, maybe you should go help those 80 years worth of kids in it. I'm just making up an example. Anywhere they need well water really would be nice. I read recently about, in Cambodia, like, if you don't know, Southeast Asian nation, about how they switched their water supply recently. They used to have a system. Again, it blows my mind that this is a thing, but, you know, maybe you don't know this either, maybe you do, and you think that I'm the weird one for not knowing. But they used to have basically a system where the water would be turned on for 10 hours a day, and it was crazy low pressure. I think it's 0.2 bars. I don't know what that is in terms of, like, feeling, but it, you know, like a stream of water for a very small number of people. And then they decided, we're gonna try real hard to give everyone in the city water. It was a huge project. They had to fire a lot of corrupt officials that were letting people steal the water. You know, there's a lot of, like, you know, things they had to do, unpopular moves, and as well as popular ones, that resulted in their water supply being a big thing. And isn't that impressive? Isn't hearing that someone did a thing, like, a feel-good feeling? Or maybe it's just me. Maybe this whole time, every time I talk about, like, feeling good about something, it's just me. And in that case, then let me talk about something else, because I guess if this is the Toycat show for Toycat feelings and thoughts anyway, then let's talk at least a little bit about something I've been, like, I guess, thinking about recently, because I get 400 million views this week, which, if you don't know, that's a cool number, right? No one's not down with 400 million views. But at the same time, you know, it does make you question, like, so what exactly is the value in a YouTube view? Like, why is it that, you know, like, so for instance, why do we have subscriber numbers if you'd figure, like, on the surface level, like, oh yeah, well, views should be more important than subscriptions, right? The number of views your channel has is more important than the number of people who chose to subscribe, because clearly that's the number of people who have watched your content. Like, 400 million separate instances of someone deciding, yeah, I'll watch a Toycat video. You know, that's been the thing that has allowed me to do this as a career. Like, even if I had 1 million subscribers, if no one watched the videos, if no one had ever found the videos, if people just subscribed because, I don't know, I got a shout out from another big YouTuber, for instance, if that was the case, then, you know, I wouldn't be able to have made this a, you know, my full-time kind of thing that I love doing every single day, that allows me to, you know, do things and talk about the real things that are on my mind, like we're doing today, in fact. And it's an interesting thing to at least posit for a little bit, right? Because, yeah, I mean, I guess arguably the views are more important than that in that way, but then you can reverse things and say, well, really, subscribers are more important, because even if 100 million people watch your terrible video, if they don't feel moved by it, if they didn't enjoy it, if they all disliked the video and didn't want to subscribe because they hate you, is that really worth more? And I love that that's the kind of, again, the same debate of, like, we can argue forever about what makes something worthwhile, and I've always liked that I've always found interesting that, like, you can debate forever what makes something worthwhile, or you can do something worthwhile and everyone would agree that it is. Like, no one would ever take something you've already done that like vaguely hits the theme of worthwhile and say that it's not good. Like if for instance we said like, oh yeah, so there's a big city, we're considering like increasing the water supply, we're gonna fire a bunch of people, we're gonna do some unpopular things. People are like, whoa, don't do those unpopular things. Like don't fire the people. They're not part of the corruption. They're not, you know, etc. etc. But like if you just look at like the thing that's been done, the goodness, then you look at it for things through an entirely different lens. The fact that we look through something that's happened with a different lens than through something that hasn't. Like if I just started my YouTube channel, I would be amazed by the idea of one day getting 400,000 views across my entire channel. Like that would be astounding. But now I see 400 million. It's like, yeah, that's good. But it's like, you know, it's within the range of expectations, given that it's you know, the channel. If you don't know, we turned 10 last week. You know, like 10 years. What is that? Like 40 million views a year. Although, like realistically, the first 3 years there was nothing, and then we kind of ramped up since then. But yeah, it's the sort of thing where you can assign motives and values entirely differently to actions you're considering taking than to ones you've already taken. And you know, on the one hand, I think this makes us, you know, like idealistic and perfect. You know, we try to be perfect, which is better than not trying to be perfect, right? But I also think that a lot of people get trapped by this logic of, oh, I'm going to do something, it needs to be perfect. I've imagined it perfect in my mind. Now I can't do any less than perfect. And that's why I wanted to like give a little bit of a message here that like, oh yeah, so even though, you know, whatever I've achieved here, it's so much less than what some people have achieved, so much more than what some people have achieved. It's like, you know, unless you're the very top or bottom of your field, which most people are not, then you're doing something worse than someone else and better than someone else. But that's not how you should define its value. You should define, you know, like you have to come up with your own meanings of values, and you should always just try to do something. Like rather than trying to make something perfect, coming up with an idea of perfect and then following that as closely as you can. Why not instead just try to do something the best you can? Ignore, you know, again, ignore the quality. Just be like, this is the best I can do, and then start improving that, rather than comparing yourself with people. Because I would say, if you want to be the best of the best there ever was, if you want to be a gold medalist, yeah, you have to compare. Like, you know, if you want to be the fastest runner in the world, you have to be faster than Usain Bolt. So compare yourself to him, right? That's a thing you've got to do. But if you just want to be a successful runner, if you just want to get under 15 seconds for 100 meters, I think that's impressive. I should time myself doing that, actually. Running's a thing that I've been like, I guess I've always dabbled a little bit of running because it's like the easiest of the sports, right? You literally just move your legs, and then also it's a form of transport, so you can do it between two places. I'm a big fan of running because it's a very functional sport. You know, like it's nice that it's a thing you can do at any stage, but comparing yourself to the best of the best is only gonna make you feel bad. And if you feel like, you know, I'm never gonna compete unless I can be faster than Usain Bolt, then you'll never compete. And in the same way, realizing that like even the most defining success on your own terms, or defining quality on your own terms, is the best way to help yourself actually improve. If you care about being the best because you need to prove something to someone, then yeah, you're going to have to compare yourself to the best and work out what they're doing that you're not all the time. And some people are like that. Some people are driven only by the external value of their results. Like, it's not enough to have a nice watch. Everyone needs to know that you spent tens of thousands on that watch. So there are some people like that, and I don't think it's a bad trait. It's not a trait I have personally. But it is a trait a lot of people have. Like, oh yeah, I have something nice, but it's not nice unless other people can enjoy it. And in the same way, an accomplishment might mean nothing to you unless other people can appreciate that it's a hard-fought accomplishment. And I kind of get that in it some way. But I also think, if you're watching this right now, and there's something that you've always wanted to do that you put off, I don't like to give the advice that follow your dreams, you'll always be successful. You probably won't be successful, but that doesn't mean that trying isn't a success in its own right. That's the message I think not enough people share. Everyone always shares the message of, follow your dreams, that's what I did, and you can be successful like me. No, for example, you know, 99% of like, you know, like YouTubers aren't successful. 90% of people who go to LA to become actresses or actors never become them, right? Like that's kind of the edge case where like, oh yeah, you're a waitress till you become an actress. No, there's just a lot of waitresses that, you know, like, and that's fine. Like, you know, it's a rare, or not fine, but it's an acceptable fact. Like, oh yeah, most people don't succeed, but then if you don't try, you know, like, even if you have a 90% chance of failure, that's better than a 100% chance of failure by not trying. That's the message we should be sending. And obviously, a lot of people hear like, oh, 90% chance of failure, why bother? But don't define yourself by success and failure in terms of that. Define yourself as like, well, I tried something I loved, it didn't work, but now I never have to think like, what if I had? Like, have you ever thought to yourself, what if I could go back in time and, like, you know, fix you know, like with my, if I could go back in time to when I was 16, I could get my crush of the time, right? That something about my modern day mind and persona, I would know what to do to get the, you know, like the girl I was crushing after the time, right? Like it's a thing I could do if I take myself back 10 years. But the reason that, but yet, you know, the fact that you failed isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just trying is more important. That's the message I always send to anyone who's like young and like they're like, oh, there's a girl I like, but I don't know what to do. Just try, man. Like no one's saying this has to be the most immensely successful venture in the world. People are just saying like, oh yeah, this is, if you try, then you'll know, oh, it's a failure, but at least I don't have to think about it again. This isn't gonna work. I can move on. Like closure is so much, like, you know, there's a reason we have something called closure, because knowing that something is like something and it won't change is much better than not being certain. Uncertainty is like a big thing we generally like to avoid in the world, whether it's you know, like, I don't know, China in terms of economic policy, or whether it's you know, you in terms of like, you know, your dog was ran over and you want to know if he's okay. The in-between phase, this is why being ghosted is not a good thing. I mentioned before I was ghosted once, and it was like a really brutal few months of just, every day was let's call it an emotional roller coaster, because you have no idea, like, oh, is this gonna happen? Is it gonna come back? I mean, nothing means, you'd figure like the worst thing you can do is tell someone, no, this is never gonna work or whatever, but what is so much worse is not knowing forever. And that's how it is with any like rare chance or anything that feels like a rare chance. Because realistically, if you ask out the girl you're attracted to, your odds are like, I don't know, maybe 50-50. I don't know your specific situation. It feels like to you like, oh no, there's only like a 1% chance he says yes. But that's why you convince the same logic that like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to go for that 1% chance because, you know, I believe in myself. I think I'm worth it, and I'd really like to see that. I now have roughly 800 wheat or so, and then I guess another like just under 200 in my inventory. So I need about 200 more wheat, and I'm realizing through this whole process just how much 1200 wheat really is. Like 400 cakes sounds like, oh yeah, well that's just like just over a stack, but the amount of ingredients, the amount of like effort every single bit of wheat takes, it's something we should all just appreciate right now. Just take a few moments to appreciate wheat in our life. Also to, I guess, mention the fact that this is what is called the new textures, and usually I never notice the new textures in Minecraft, but I've noticed it's so hard in this wheat field. Like, I think wheat is one of the most changed Minecraft textures, arguably in a good way, because the old one, you know, it doesn't really make sense, but I mean, it's not like Minecraft is the most realistic game. I'm not saying it should make sense, but it is a very interesting kind of thing to see that, like, oh yeah, with wheat, you can see this crazy change the biggest, etc. Anyway, I did want to talk about something briefly before I leave the views things behind, because, you know, we hit a lot of cool milestones. We also hit 1.1 million subscribers, which is kind of cool. Again, I feel like, I never like to just say milestones, even though, you know, like, it's a fact that we hit that many subscribers, but also it feels a bit braggy to be like, so guys, you want to hear something great? I hit a lot of subscribers recently. Do you guys know about that? It's really, really cool. You wanna hear about the number of other people that like me? Because in some way, I worry that, like, you know, in my head, I'm almost like, why would you care how many other subscribers I have? Like, you know, surely you want to be the only subscriber. In your dream world, it's just you and me, and I'm making content for you. And obviously, you know, like, the reality that anyone knows, if you think about it for a little bit, is like, well, the more subscribers he has, the more, like, you know, like, the more he's compensated for his work that hopefully you enjoy. And the longer this YouTube thing can last. Because there always is that ticking time bomb on every YouTube career of like, oh yeah, this might end soon. In the same way that, like, I don't know, like an athlete, once you turn 35, or like someone who works in an industry where you need to be attractive and youthful, like, yeah, you've got a certain number of years in you that isn't going all the way till 65. Because, yeah, actually, you know, can I talk about something that, like, this is going to sound like I'm just saying, oh, well, this is why YouTubers need to be paid millions of dollars. Not that I make millions, I've stated many times before. But it is something interesting that, like, a lot of people don't, I guess, properly think about. Because most people have lifespans where they work from 18 to, like, I don't know, 67, whatever the retirement age is, where you live. And then you retire, use the money, and then you don't work after that. Like, from 0 to 18, you don't work. From 67 to your death age, you don't work as well. But then there are some people, like, if you work in a really physical job, you probably need to stop working at, like, 60, because, you know, really, really physical jobs, eventually your body just is going to start destroying itself if you keep doing that. So that's why a lot of people who work in, like, I don't know, plumbing or laboring usually switch over to, like, office jobs, or they just retire at 50. And then there are some jobs where, like, oh yeah, like if you're an athlete, you're gonna have to retire at like max 40 because you lose. For some reason, it seems as I guess we're like I've worked out from that like, oh yeah, you lose your youthfulness, your ability to do all that sort of stuff at that age. That's when you retire, or when you have to find another job at least. But your major thing stops then. If you're in a, again, an industry, in my head I'm thinking like, oh yeah, any of the sex works industries. But like anything where, you need to be a beautiful man or a beautiful woman, then, like as you age, that seriously goes down. Like it's one of the real tragedies that we don't mention because it makes you feel like a ticking time bomb. But like, oh yeah, it's a real thing. And in the same way, like when you work in anything that's fame related, you're famous, especially YouTube. Like, most YouTube careers seem to be about 4 or 5 years. Even if you made $1 million a year, again, I don't make $1 million a year, then 5 million for a lifetime, it's enough to be sorted, but it's not enough to, you don't live $1 million a year lifestyle. You save most of that $1 million, hopefully, if you're a smart YouTuber, and then you have the rest of your time. And I've always found that interesting that like when you get paid for something, this is like, I guess, one life lesson, because I've always said I wanted to do like a finance and ClickCat channel. I won't do that today for you too much, but I do want to say, just remember that whenever you do get paid from any job, you're not getting paid for right now, like, oh, I get paid once a week, so every week I have, 250 or whatever, like even excluding the fact that you'd want to save anyway, because everyone wants to save to buy things that cost more than one. If we ignore that fact, because, like, sure, then, like, you're getting paid to also cover the times where you don't get paid. Like, oh, yeah, sometimes you'll go on a holiday. I guess, actually, I think most jobs have paid leave. Man, as someone, I guess, like, who's always been self-employed, I always forget that, like, oh, yeah, when you're not, like, a contractor, when you're not, like, a person who just works for people in exchange for money, you get, like, real, mandated, I guess it's called benefits, right? That's a nice little thing. Or maybe it's terrible. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think the labor force should be more laissez-faire. You let me know in those comments. don't really do it. But yeah, like you're not just working for now. You're working for the times when you're not working. And it's a lesson that like you don't think about because especially like I was just hyped. I never had like a huge I never had access to a huge amount of money. I didn't have access to any money really when I was younger. Like, oh yeah, I felt bad because my mother was a single mother. Like, most of the money was going just to like keep the house going, and I felt bad being like, oh yeah, I'd like this money. She'd be like, oh, okay, I'll try my best, and it'd be like, oh no, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I think I've seen a few people, few subscribers mention the same thing. Like, I think, especially if you grow up with like your parents you don't know how much your parents have, or you think it's very low, knowing that you're taking away something that they could get for themselves, it's the tragedy in being like a caring person, right? Like, I think there's this real problem where like if you care too much, again, I always advocate caring too much over not caring enough. But like if you do care too much about people, you'll always think about what you're taking from them rather than what you're giving to them. And maybe that's like my little life lesson right here. Like, your existence adds to the world. You might think like, nah, it doesn't really add to the world. That's a cheesy thing people say to everyone. But like, it literally does, right? Even if we try to remove the fact that like, oh yeah, well you're a son or a daughter or whatever, like your existence watching this video, the fact that you've made it this far, you've helped my watch time. You've so even like let's make this the most selfish point in the world, right? Let's say that you're on the edge and you're like, I don't know if I should do this. Just remember, like, Toy Cat's watch time, it's not gonna get itself up by itself, like this this is really bad advice. This is what we should say to suicidal people. Like, well, I mean, you could kill yourself, but the next notification's coming by any day now, and you gotta provide that support to the videos that you know and love, because it is a real thing. Like being a super fan on YouTube, because watch time is such a huge measure, and it's a measure that you can't. Like, I think, okay, let's talk about YouTube. Because, the thing that links everything together today, like, oh yeah, episode 400 million views, all these cool milestones, they happen because of YouTube. YouTube is one of the most significant influences in my life now. Perhaps the most significant influence, I would say, in 2019 now. And, yeah, basically, because of that, I guess we can go for a little bit of a YouTube chat, I think. So, yeah, YouTube basically has always tried to have, like, different ways to work out how much people liked a video. so I can recommend that video to other people. But there's always been a problem where, like, whatever the most common thing was, whether it was likes or comments, engagement, as they called it at one point, you know, people could always just tell their audience to do that. Like, oh, make sure you like this video, because, you know, people would come up with fake reasons. I've always been honest, like this video, because I hear it probably helps out the channel. You know, the literal phrase is, helps out the channel. Let us know that you do like it, because those are the two things that it does. It helps out the channel, and the number of likes lets me know how much people like a video as opposed to just watching it. I have 400 million views, but I have something like, you know, like 30 million likes, because not everyone who watched the video liked it. Not because they didn't like it, but because they didn't hit the button, which makes things confusing. But I know that 30 million people probably liked the video a little bit, right? Like, that's a good sign. That's a thing I have in my head that is positive. But yeah, no, so the point I was trying to raise right here is that I think the reason that watch time is such a big thing, which is such a tricky metric to work on, is because, you know, you can't tell your subscribers, make sure you watch more of my videos, because they'll do that. You know, like, I think that's the one thing you can never convince someone to do. Like, I would love if I could say, hey, even if you're feeling on the edge right now, if you're gonna take a nap, make sure you leave my videos lying on in the background, so, you know, max out that watch time. Because I think what must have happened, I have a few live streams that went huge, because I think a few people, like maybe 10 in a row, just started watching the entire thing and watched a full 2-hour video, which shows YouTube a huge signal of like, wow, these people watch 2 hours? What? And I think that maybe, just maybe, at least, that it's possible, it's plausible that, you know, like, maybe this message right here does help you in some way. Like, oh yeah, I thought I was worthless, Toy Cat, but now I realize that I'm helping your click-through rates, which, you know, indirectly allows you to do ridiculous things, like, I don't know, like, all the cooking with Toy Cat. I'm gonna buy a deep fryer, I've decided. I spoke to Kit Kats about it, and yeah, we were like, yeah, turns out you probably should get yourself one of those. You know, like, these are the sorts of things, or like going to Taiwan. At some point this year, at some point in the next like 3-4 years, I have like a really big, ambitious dream that used to be like a, haha, what a joke, that'll never be a thing, that I think I'm gonna turn into reality. I don't want to talk about it too much right now, because it sounds like a really, like, you know, it sounds like a thing that you don't want to do, that sounds like a flashy thing. Again, I'll explain it some other time. It's like a plain goal thing, but it's something that I can really do. How hype. Oh look, the grass is finally spreading onto these upper floors. Like, it's slowly getting there. It's got to get all the way to the top. It'll get there eventually. But yeah, now we should have enough wheat, I hope, like 5 or 6 stacks. So is this 400 wheat? I wouldn't say this is 400. 400 wheat would be 8 stacks, I want to say, if I had to guess on the top of my head. 7 stacks. So we're very, very close. One more stack, and we can finally move on from this wheat. By the way, I would like to use this entire, like, thing where I've had to go up and down this over and over again, and I can't get the entire harvest because it hasn't grown yet, as proof of why the Insane Sugarcane Farm is so great. No matter how much sugarcane I need, it'll always, like, I never have to go through this, like, oh yeah, pick which sugarcane, have some and don't have some. And if I have this wheat farm big enough, as I eventually will have, because I've got some diamond hoes, I'm doing some heavy duty work, as you've seen before and you've seen in today's video, to make this thing really covered in wheat, so that one day when I need to make, you know, 1,000 cakes or whatever use I need for so much wheat, I'll be able to just be like, oh yeah, I have that much actually, or I can get that much really easily. Because now you can see, like, when you have a small farm, you have to harvest it multiple times, and then wait, and then harvest again. My dream is always to have enough that I can just harvest until it's done. Like, I can just keep working until the thing has happened, because that's the preferable way. I think breaks are a valuable thing to have in the world, but maybe not here. I think we're on a whole rant about how, like, oh yeah, if you're suicidal, make sure you keep watching Toy Cat videos. So I feel like I should probably, like, pivot away from that, which is why I'm going to instead pivot to the useful life lesson of take breaks. They're important, except when they're not important. Sometimes breaks are a bad idea. See, that's a good useful life lesson. Like, do things except when you shouldn't do them, because that's what every life lesson in the world can really be boiled down to that. Do these things except when you shouldn't do these things, which is sometimes. Which of the times is this? That's something you've got to work out, I guess. So, because that you know, that's really how most things are. Like, oh yeah, do this, except don't do this, and then do this some more, and then there you go. Hopefully that's enough for you. Okay, so now we've got ourselves 1,200 wheat. I want to say it's 1,200. I'm doing the maths really spottily in my head right now. But let's say roughly 1,200 wheat. We have 800 sugar, which means we have over half the ingredients for a cake. But now we have to move into the trickier ones, because now we need 1,200 buckets of milk, which, you know, we don't have 1,200 buckets. We'll have to have 3 buckets that we just continuously refill. And then we need the last ingredient after that, 400 eggs. And yeah, I guess for this one, let's head over So as much as I like making giant contraptions to get a lot of a different item, I need 400 eggs, and I probably have a little bit less than that lying around, so I need to multiply my eggs, and I could make a giant build. But you know what's way more fun? Making the laziest possible version of something. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the most basic version of a egg farm and just make it and then leave it for a really long time. So we're going to have a hopper, which will just be lying, I guess, right over, right here where there's no window. We'll place a hopper just over here. Then we'll place ourselves some stone slabs just over here, and then we'll place them round as well. And then we can grab a bunch of eggs, because again, I have something like 100, 200 eggs lying around. If we just place all of these eggs and we throw them into our little, thing over here, then we should be able to, with pretty much no time at all. Well, this did not go according to plan. The chickens just got everywhere. Okay, let's try this again. So, because 1 in every 16 eggs you throw will create a chicken, and because chickens lay eggs just periodically, if we throw enough eggs into this little hole over here, then what will eventually happen is we'll have more than one chicken, and then we can breed them there, or we can just leave them there, and they'll produce eggs, which will automatically go into the hopper. Like, I seriously have so many eggs in every single part of my world in places where there really shouldn't be eggs randomly around. But again, I just kind of place them in every chest I have because I haven't really needed chests till now. But now I have a use for eggs, and that is to throw eggs into this little hole right here, and then to have lots of baby chickens that grow into big chickens that start producing eggs that will put them in that hopper. Except a hopper, oh man, did I just, okay, well, baby chickens are too small to, oh my god, we have, okay, my plan is flawed. My plan is very flawed. It was a golden idea on the surface. It's been ruined by my hubris, though. Okay, there we go. Just like that. Let's try this again. This time, we have so many eggs running around now. So many chickens running around. But yeah, now we should, after a short amount of time, have a... Oh my god, I'm so bad. I am wasting so many eggs on this horrible venture. But now, we have all of our eggs, after 16 more, thrown in this little place, and that means we'll have a steady supply of eggs, which means if we leave the game running while we go for a run, and maybe while we sleep tonight, then we should wake up with a lot of eggs. By the way, I thought this would be really simple, but it's so ugly and so not simple, but I guess aren't most things in life. Oh, also, this is important because right now a hopper can only store something like 80 eggs or, 5 stacks of something. We need to have a place for all of those things to go into. So we'll have the hopper go into this barrel, and then this barrel can store all of the eggs from all the various things. So there we go. Now our wall is part of a big chicken farm that just automatically makes eggs. Easy stuff. Okay, so I went for a run, watched some YouTube videos. By the way, I don't run. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. It's just something I've been trying recently because I made an offhanded comment about wanting to run a marathon. And I feel like I should, follow up on that a little bit. And in case you're curious, a marathon is, I want to say 26 miles, which is roughly 40 kilometers. And I ran 2 kilometers yesterday, 2.5 kilometers today. So we're basically at that 40 kilometers already. Anyway, with that said, you don't care about that. What you do care about, though, is chickens, which we're going to breed together now. And then we're also going to collect all the eggs, because it's been roughly a couple of hours, and we have this number of eggs, which we can now turn into more chickens. So as well as breeding and getting more chickens that way, assuming they can breed in such a small area, I mean, I'm no expert on battery farming, but I believe that is a thing that can happen. But yeah, we'll just wait until we get some baby chickens out of that. And then we'll also make our own baby chickens, because let's take things into our own hands. We'll be really careful about this, because I've learned my lesson now. We'll just kind of spam downwards like that, and then we'll get some baby chickens in there, which eventually will grow into full chickens, which will give us more eggs, so on and so forth. Repeat, add, oh no, they can, how is that a real thing that can happen? Man, baby chickens are weird, like, their mob hitbox is just too small. Oh god, okay, so, as long as it doesn't happen again, we're fine. Okay, as long as they can't get knocked out, we're good. Okay, there we go, we're golden. So yeah, as you can see, we've got a lot of baby chickens in one place. I think you can get a maximum of 24 mobs in one space before bad things start to happen. And we can deal with that when we get there. But for now, we've got a steady supply of eggs. One might even, yeah, one did actually hatch in the time since we took the other ones. Oh, we've got 8 over here as well. Let's throw those down. Honestly, I'm just surprised that I've never thought of a chicken farm before, because I love farms where having a lot of something gives you more of that thing. You know, that kind of cookie clicker gameplay where the more chickens you have, the more eggs you have, which means the more chickens you have, etc. I love that for sugarcane, I love that for so many things, and I've never done it for chickens before, which is kind of odd. Also, it's a really bad idea to have a cat anywhere near your chicken farm, but let's hope this doesn't go horribly wrong, because, you know, she/he is sat on a chest, so let's hope that goes just fine. So I left the chickens running overnight. Roughly 6 hours is how long I slept, which means we now have 360 minutes of today's 400 minutes covered by my AFK-ness, and as you can see, we've got all the eggs we could ever want in the world, plus more filling in here apparently, which means, yeah, now we've got the chickens, now we've got the eggs, we've got the wheat, we've got the sugar. What do we need now? All we need is the cow buckets. So yeah, there are a few ways we could do this one. We could just have a single, actually we need 3 buckets at the least, but I'm going to try and get as many buckets as I can, and then we can make like 3 or 4 cakes at a go. And yeah, let's see how long it takes us to craft all these cakes. So just in case you're wondering exactly how I have so many buckets in my world, or where they are, basically for my giant smelting project where I tried to make, I think it was 55,000 blocks of glass, you need a lot of buckets for that because you need to smelt a lot of lava, which means that, yeah, we have a lot of lava buckets, we have a lot of buckets just in general lying around over here, and we're going to take 16 of them. Actually, we'll take 15, it's a nice rounder number, like 5. We can make 5 cakes in a row of 15 of these, and then we're going to be taking these 15 buckets, filling them up with milk, and then making 5 cakes, then taking another 15 buckets, fill them up with milk, so on and so forth. And yeah, that sounds like a pretty good strategy. So, yeah, the crafting of this is actually something that takes a lot more strategy because making 400 cakes is more than an inventory. It's more than 2 inventories, in fact. So the way we've done it is we're just going to take a steady amount of the other 3 ingredients, hopefully to scale. We're going to place our crafting table right next to this, right in here. We're going to place down this over here. And yeah, we're going to do this. So let's see. This is a fun little milking minigame. Let's get some sugar out as well. Just make sure that's balanced out. And let's... Oh, we need more inventory slots, I guess. Okay, I emptied out my inventory into a nearby chest, which means we can now grab a lot more sugar, we can grab more wheat, we can grab more eggs, because we're going to need a lot of those at once, because eggs only stack up to 16. Oh, but now we have the inventory thing again. Okay, there we go. Now we've done this, we now can get 15 eggs roughly at one time. You know, we can't. Let's just make a bunch of milk buckets. Some of them will go on the ground, but that's fine, because we can pick them up later. And then we can go ahead and start making these cakes. So 4 cakes. Look how many inventory slots it takes to make 4 cakes. It's crazy. But now we have 5 cakes. Then we can drink a bunch more cows, or milk a bunch more cows, and then we can get 5 cakes. Because fortunately enough, Minecraft has a little fun thing that, like, you don't actually need to have the right number of like, cows can be milked an infinite number of times because that's realism right there, which means, yeah, we can just keep doing this over and over again until we get 400 cakes, which I didn't even realize, like, how long this is going to take at this speed, but I want to do it. I've committed to doing it, so we're making 400 cakes, damn it. A fun fact you might not know about cakes is at one point they used to take the bucket as well as the milk if you wanted to make them. So doing this was a much, much harder process then, because you just lose, like, somewhat randomly, I would say. You just randomly start losing your buckets. Or, you know, it would cost, like, as well as costing 400 sets of milk, 1,200 sets of milk to make 400 cakes, it would cost you 1,200 buckets, 3,600 iron. Yeah, imagine the amount of iron. 9 iron for every single cake, which was absurd because, I mean, you shouldn't lose the bucket, but it was a limitation of Minecraft's crafting recipe system at the time. So fun fact, that's why we used to lose buckets to make cake. And that's why cakes used to contain a lot more iron. Yeah, I never realized that cakes are probably the least efficient item to craft in Minecraft, because even once you have a lot of the ingredients you need, you just have to do a lot of this. Like, a physical inventory cannot store that many milk buckets, cannot store that many cake ingredients at once. And yeah, even with it perfectly optimized like we've tried to do today, we've only just passed a stack of cakes. We've only just passed 1 stack. We need at least 7 of these, or sorry, at least 6 of these, and then like halfway through the 7th if we're gonna get this done. So I'm gonna be here for a while. I have no idea what just happened, but I think the exact thing I just mentioned happened anyway. Like, I had 15 buckets, and I literally just lost 12 randomly. So that's a fun bug. A bug that just cost me 12 buckets. These aren't cheap items either. They just... 12 of my buckets accidentally got made into some cakes. How does that even happen? I guess I'm doing cakes individually now, my last 3 buckets then. Yeah, this is a... Like, I don't think they're on the ground anywhere. I think I literally just lost 12 iron. I'm having issues dealing with this right now. Like, I have to make 400 cakes individually. Do it the old-fashioned way, I guess. I lied. I went and got the rest of the buckets from the other place, because doing it one by one was killing me just a bit too fast for my own liking there. So, 3 sets of cakes at a time, and we've got roughly halfway through the cake pile, I would say now. We've got just over 200 cakes here, right? So, yeah, let's get at this and let's finish the rest of the cakes in the rain. Let's go. Okay, so I finally finished, at least if my basic maths here is right. We've got 6 stacks, and then we've got just under half another stack, which means we have over 400 cakes. It took almost a full 20 minutes, but we're here now. We have some cakes, which means we can make some cake pixel art or something like that. You know, the what we're doing with the cakes is less important than the fact that we made 400 cakes for 400 episodes. Every single one of these cakes represents an episode, which is pretty wild by itself, but you know how we can make it more wild? I mean, I'd like to know if you do, but... Okay, so I've got my 400 cakes lined up. Now I just need to return these 9 buckets, and we'll probably go to sleep over there because it's getting pretty late in the day. And then we're going to go and make something to celebrate 400 episodes, to make bigger the fact that there's been a lot of individual attempts, many successful, many unsuccessful, and over the years, they've culminated in one big thing. And it's hard to represent an idea in any real way to people. Like, how do you explain what 10 years of work is, or 10 years of something that exists is? It's hard to explain everything using just words. Words are a great tool to explain simple and sometimes more complex concepts, but sometimes to make something that everyone understands, you need to build something. And that's the beauty of Minecraft. Everyone can understand it, and everyone can produce it. So let's go and show off that beauty, but for cakes. So let's go ahead and let's do this. Let's make a 400 cake build to celebrate 400 episodes of, honestly, you know, a series which was, it's kind of, in some ways, you know, the concept of a Let's Play is kind of past its time, but that's what makes it cool in some ways. Something which isn't necessarily a thing that is perfect for the current day, but has been going on so long that it was a thing in its day. I know, there's something kind of nice about that. The fact that it has evolved anyway is also kind of great. But yeah, in case you don't care about any of that, let's go ahead and let's just make ourselves a giant 400, I reckon. You know, because 300's a cool number. Everyone's like, yeah, I love 300. It's like the movie. But you know what doesn't get enough love? The number 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves a giant 4. Probably the really basic 4, not the complex 4, because a complex 4 requires like some diagonals. We want to do everything in straight lines, because that's what Minecraft is all about. Even though Minecraft is a game of potential great complexity, the wonderful thing to me is the fact that it doesn't need to all be so complex. You can be as complex or as not complex as you like. Also, pro tip, you actually can't place cakes in midair. Like if I try right now, you can see I literally can't place a cake over here because cakes have to be on top of some physical block. I think the most lightweight physical block in the game, besides maybe like leaves or something, definitely has to be trapdoors, and trapdoors, they don't burn down theoretically at some point. So yeah, we're going to make our entire thing here out of cakes and then out of trapdoors as well. And that's just my whole plan, and we'll see how well this one goes. So yeah, we're going to make a big 4 right here. We're going to pray we don't run out of cakes, because I haven't thought about how this is going to last in the slightest. I'm just kind of winging it, I say as I fly. Very clever, I know. But yeah, basically, I think having physical representations of things, it's something I used to be really, really against. Like, I thought, why do we need statues? Anyone who has a statue of themselves must be such a, you know, like, you have to be pretty obsessed with yourself. You have to think you're a pretty great guy to be like, you know what? I need to be, there needs to be a physical representation of me in the world long after I am gone. You know, like, me existing was great, but, like, how will the world survive without me? We need a statue of me in the world. But I also think, like, having a physical version of something that lasts beyond a thing, or having a physical version of something, even that lasts at the same time as a thing, is a cool way to say, yeah, this was significant at its time. And, you know, maybe it's significant, past its time. But it's a cool way to show, yeah, significance of something. Because so many events, every single event that happens is equally significant in its own right. The reason that I spent episode 399 going on a big, like, why do people even care about XYZ, or whatever rant. And that's because, yeah, like, why, also, is this the same level as that, or is this? Okay, it's this one. But, why do people care about, birthdays? Like, oh, it so happens that the sun has gone round, sorry, the Earth has gone round the sun precisely one full, at least it's not full rotation because leap years, one full and a tiny bit rotation around the sun, and therefore I am celebrating, and, we're going to do some crazy stuff, because you better believe this only happens once every 365 days, roughly. And it's like, okay, then, that's, it's kind of like the event is the excuse in some ways, and maybe I think that's something I'm kind of, like, thinking about more and more as, like, these things go on. Like, maybe maybe something doesn't have to have a perfect reason. It can just have a nice excuse sometimes. Also, I thought we were so close to, like, we're one trapdoor off being able to do 400 with the perfect number of trapdoors. We have to make another one now. Like, I didn't even realize this. It was going to be perfection. Because I just figured, you know what, trapdoors, they're a nice block. We'll craft some. Get ready for this. Actually, wait, so just in case you want to know, like, spoiler alerts about how some of this stuff is done. Because most of the Let's Play is literally on the cuff fly. This episode's a bit different because I figured, you know what, let's do something fun. A lot of people are liking the big project videos. What if we combine that with the Let's Play in a bit of a weird way? So we'll talk about, you know, the insignificance of your life, but also we'll talk about, you know, making cakes and how hard that can be and maybe inspire you to do the same. Oh, we need to do the bottom bit too. But, yeah, the interesting thing about this Let's Play episode is there was a little bit of out of orderness to it. I was like, oh, last night, before I record this episode, I need to spend like a bunch of time getting eggs, so I'll do that section first. That's why if you didn't spot at the time, you can go back now and you can feel really clever being like, I noticed how Toy Cat has less XP and he has more steaks in his hotbar when he's, oh, wait, we did this wrong. Oh, no, it's fine. Toy Cat has more steaks in his hotbar before he starts doing the chickens than after. That's a bit... Oh, wait. Yeah, like, that's a bit suspicious. I think I got that right. If I didn't, then whatever. But, yeah, you kind of get the point. They're like, oh, yeah, as it turns out, there's a little bit of, like, out of orderness to it. Because I think YouTube is always going to have some element of, like, well, people really like cut-down content. Cut down? Is that the word? Yeah, I guess cut down might be appropriate. People like the form of content... Oh, okay, we did that trapdoor wrong. So we have to break the cake, and it will never come back. Which is a tragedy, but it's a tragedy we must sustain, despite the sadness it brings me. Oh, look at that, it's gone forever now, it's just gone. Okay, and then we place our trapdoor at the level of this one right here, and then we place cakes above it. And same thing, so on and so forth. Making a giant 400 out cakes, because I like cakes, not just on like I like food because I'm a fat monster level, but also the celebration aspect is great. But yeah, so I think on YouTube there's always some element of like out of orderness of it, but I think it's always good to like trust your audience or like not always assume that your audience knows that, but make it clear to them. Don't try to necessarily hide it unless there is some good narrative reason for it. Because one of the things, I'm still angry. Can I you know, I can talk about it. You know, this is a Let's Play. I can talk about whatever I want. Because one of the things that still makes me a little mad to this day. Every time I remember it, I'm like, man, I got ripped off so hard. And I got ripped off for time in my life because it was a Netflix show. I didn't pay for it, so I guess I shouldn't be so mad. But I'm so mad anyway, and let me explain why. Because there's a show called Fargo. It's really popular. It's based in a town called Fargo, North Dakota. Who would have guessed Fargo is based in Fargo? But yeah, there's this show called Fargo. And at the start of every episode, there's also a movie based on it that says the same thing. It says, this is based on a true story. Out of respect for the dead, everything... Out of respect for the living, names have been changed. But out of respect for the dead, everything else has been told exactly the way it was, thing. And you're like, wow, this is a true story? Like, it's a crazy... there's a lot of stuff that happens. And then I looked into it after the fact, because I was like, wait, that's a bit of an unrealistic ending. Spoiler alert, has an unrealistic ending. And, also, let's eat a cake a little bit. From the wrong side, apparently. You know, it's perfect this cake is slightly off. I like imperfection more than perfection. But, yeah, then it turns out, I was like, this ending's a bit of a weird one, if you ask me. So I decided, I'll do what any sane person will do. I'll look it up, and I'll make sure, I'll find out how it really was meant to end. And, after doing that, I just had the most, I guess, depressed moment of realizing that, also, look, 400 in big letters. We'll do an exclamation mark, too, because it always has to have an exclamation mark, right? I don't know how we're going to do that with trapdoors, but let's work it out. But yeah, basically, the show just lies about being based on a true story. I don't know how that's allowed. I didn't realize that you were just allowed to say you were based on a true story without being based on a true story. It seems like that's the sort of thing that wouldn't be okay, but apparently it's just A-okay, make up whatever stories you like, and yeah, because there's no like legal report, because most people wouldn't say that for a thing that's fake. And they defend it by saying, well, it's a story, and we make it more believable by saying that it's real. And it's like, no, you make it more believable by lying. Like, and yeah, all movies are lies, but they're lies where you suspend your disbelief, and you know that your disbelief is suspended. You don't have to worry about the characters after it's done. But, when... Oh, okay, we landed. But when you convince people that it's real, then they do have to care about the characters, or they're they're not very good people if they don't at the very least. And I don't know, just I was so upset by that. I'm like, I'm not watching season 2 then. Get you're bad people. I don't know who makes it. Warner Brothers, whichever one of the major studios. It's a couple of brothers actually that make the show, and it's like, why? Why did you need to do that? Why did you need to lie to the audience? You don't have to assume we're idiots. We can enjoy a show. Most people watch things that they know are fake, but they believe it's real for the purpose of it. Just making someone feel like an idiot because you made them trust you and then you lied to them. I don't know why, but I've never liked that aspect of like out of ordinance or like showmanship or whatever else. And yeah, I don't know, little rant as we finish. The big 400 right here. It's a bit weird with the trapdoors. I'm sure there's a block that might look slightly better, but if you get far enough away, I'm sure the trapdoors will fade out. Wait, let's look behind me, make sure I'm safe. As we get far away, I'm sure the trapdoors will fade out, and it'll look better and better. Although the gap between the cakes seems to get bigger and bigger. But yeah, we made 400 cakes to celebrate 400 episodes. 400 episodes of anything doesn't usually happen. Friends got 200 something. The Big Bang Theory got 200 something. How many shows go for 400 episodes? I can name so few off the top of my head. And, maybe The Simpsons. And it's cool that YouTube allows super niche content like this that, is for a small subsection of a subsection of a small subsection of an audience to enjoy. But the fact that we got to 400 episodes, the fact that this happened, that's nice. That's cool. That's a thing. It means nothing, and it means everything. It just depends on how you want to see things. And, yeah, I guess I've come to a realization of that recently. Maybe you have as well. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you just think, this was stupid. Why did you do any of this, Toy Cat? And if that is your opinion, then I'd love to hear about it. Oh, also, it turns out cakes don't have a render distance. I was always fearful they might, like chests. But yeah, you can see from all the way up here, 400. And that means if I go to the very top of the sugarcane farm, because you get some good views from up there, that'll be a good place to end this one off. And kind of let you know what I'm up to. Because if you don't know, YouTube is the thing that allows me to live what I would I think is described in internet meme terms as my best life. Because of this channel, like I said before, like I am I've always worked myself. I probably always will because I'm really hard to motivate. The only person that can motivate me is probably me, which maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. Decide for yourself. But yeah, basically, so I always like work myself, which meant that usually I'd have to be like, well, this is the only thing I can do. But because of the success of YouTube, I'm able to live one of my dreams and travel the world to some extent. And it's something that's only been possible because of all of the support of you watching videos like this one and other ones. Oh, look, you can see it from up here, 400. You can't see as much from up here as I was hoping, because I guess on Windows 10 the render distance is way higher. But still, we can see a lot. We can see the whole world, and we can fly towards it. As I say, thank you so much for watching this video, and all the rest of them on this channel. If you did like this, you can like it and let me know. If you did really like it, then, I don't know, hit something else. In this video, I won't tell you to do stuff. Those things can help. Watching this video all the way help me more than you could ever understand. And I appreciate you for doing that. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. And I guess I hope I'll see you all in the next one. Wait, I'm going to get one more perfect shot and then say, hit that bell. Just kidding. Goodbye.